You're listening to Ideal Practice, episode number 19. I've got a real treat for you today. I'm going to tell you about a conversation I had with Karie Karie is a licensed marriage and family therapist and an art therapist who found herself struggling a little during her initial visit with certain clients in a way that just didn't make sense. So we dove in, did a little exploring, and made some interesting discoveries that I think you will appreciate, because the very thing that was tripping her up could very well be a factor for you too. So tune in and stick around to the end, because I've got a little exercise, a journal prompt, that is going to help you bring this home for your practice too. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Wendy Pitts-Reeves, and with over 2 decades of experience in the private practice world, I've built my 6-figure business while learning a lot of lessons the hard way. This is the first podcast that shows you how to apply the principles of energy, alignment, and strategy to build a practice that is profit-centered, but people-forward. This is the Ideal Practice Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Wendy, and I am so happy to be here with you guys today. Welcome to August. Well, we're a little bit into August by now. I think we are in Leo season. Is that right? Is this Leo time, I think? I'm not so sure about that. I don't know about where you are, but here schools have started back. Energy is flowing, and there's a bit of that kind of feeling of, getting down to business. Well, we're getting down to business here today, too. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a concept that is really subtle and yet so important to your success as a practice owner, and I would say as a clinician or as a healer as well. If you can grasp this, if I can share it in a way that makes sense, I really think it's going to be helpful. And if you like it and you enjoy this, could you do me a little favor and maybe share this episode with a friend? You probably know at least one other person, maybe a couple of other folks, maybe a small business owner like you, maybe a colleague who could really use this kind of information. If so, take a moment and send this episode to them too. I'd be ever so grateful, and I bet they will be too. All right, so let's dive into what we're talking about today. Essentially, I want to share with you a case study. So one of my clients, Karie is a licensed marriage and family therapist and also an art therapist. She is dual licensed, has a wealth of experience in all kinds of things, is really good at what she does. And we've been working together for a while as she and her partners are building a group practice. And we were talking not long ago about how things were going in the practice. And she mentioned that she needed some referrals, but she was really hesitant about reaching out to referral sources, about meeting with other people. And so we just kind of started talking about that, like what was making her a little hesitant? What was she worried about? What was that little bit of angst about? And what we found was she had an intake that just felt kind of off. And I think that was affecting her confidence level. And as we talked, I began to realize that there were a couple of things going on here, one of which that the conversation that didn't feel right was in many ways a clinical indication of something that was going on with the client. Maybe you can relate to this. Folks come to us, and yet there's something about the way the conversation goes where you can tell they're just up in their heads or they're almost testing you in a way. Karie said it was almost as if they were saying, like, fix me. And so she found herself leaning in more, talking more, perhaps feeling a little more pressure to convince them. You know what I mean? So there's this sense that, I've got to bring this client in. I've got to connect. I've got to make sure that I prove my worth. I've got to make sure that I can do the thing here, whatever it is that they're there to get, right? What struck me was that there are 2 aspects to this. One is this is a clinical observation that I think she could use to connect and serve them better. And I'll talk about how in a moment. But I also think there is a business application of this, Because the resistance, the ever so natural way that all of us as human beings tend to move toward what we need and yet resist it at the same time, that same resistance happens in a business sense when folks are thinking about making a purchase, about investing in their work and their results with you, right? So whether we're talking about bringing someone into a therapeutic conversation and helping them connect with the process of the healing work itself, or whether we're just talking about the business side of things, about helping them see the value of this work and why it's worth investing in. Either way, the dynamics are kind of similar. So what was happening here is that Karie could feel that something wasn't right, and of course was a little worried about that and would find herself essentially trying harder. So what happens when we try harder, right? It doesn't feel very good. And what we gradually realized, and I don't know, has anyone ever said this to you or not, but I've had mentors say to me that when we find ourselves working harder than our clients, that's kind of a clue that something is off kilter. And as a psychotherapist, there are all kinds of ways that I would address that in a session. As a business owner, though, it goes the same. And for me as a coach, honestly, what was happening in that session, what we gradually figured out was that Karie wasn't stepping into her particular area of expertise, her secret weapon, her magic juice. Art is what lights her up, and she has so much experience in different ways to use art to help people get better. But during the intake session, I think she was a little hesitant about leading with that, because you know how this is, y'all. A lot of folks kind of freak out when you talk about something like art. And what happens? People are going to say things like, oh, well, I can't draw. How in the world would this help me? And I'm mentioning this. This is what Karie's particular gift was. But you may also have a particular skill, a particular tool, a particular process that is a little out of the norm of whatever your particular industry is, okay? And what Karie was doing was she felt like she needed to just connect with people verbally first and maybe introduce the concept around art later. But what dawned on me as she was telling me this was that she wasn't showing up as her authentic self. Not really. She wasn't bringing her true expertise to the fore and giving them a true sense of what it would be like to work with her. So there was this sense that, I've got to talk to them first, and this is going to be a little uncomfortable, and, it's a little different, so we'll just deal with that later. When we have something a little different to offer, y'all, it's really easy to assume that it's kind of a negative or that it's something we have to, quote, sell, unquote. But I'm going to tell you, often it's just the opposite. Often the very thing that you kind of want to do, but you're not sure your clients are ready for it yet, is often exactly the tool, the way of showing up, the way of being, the energy, the process that your clients are going to really respond best to. What I wanted Karie to do, and what I want you to do, is lean into this, not away from it. Many of you have heard me tell the story about how many years ago I had a colleague who referred somebody to me because she said this client needed a, quote, kick in the pants, unquote, which always makes me squirm when I say that. But it was a light bulb moment because I realized essentially out of that referral, my kind of tendency is to be pretty straight with people and to sometimes push folks a little more than is always comfortable. And I used to apologize for that. I do need to watch it. I try to monitor it. There's an appropriate time and a place when that is exactly the right thing to do and when it's not. But once I began to own that in myself and lean into it, not away from it, my clients started getting better results, and I started getting the kind of clients who were a better fit for me. So if Karie could find a way to bring what really lights her up right off the bat into her conversation with clients from the very beginning, my hunch is that her clients will lean in too. All right? I want you to hear that. When you bring what makes you unique to the foreground and you lean into it, the clients who are just right for you will lean into it as well. That's really cool, y'all. This is important. I love this, and I want you to get this. Well, it dawned on me as I was thinking about this conversation with her. In the therapeutic world, as counselors, we talk about how to help people overcome their resistance, quote unquote, to treatment, or their resistance to doing the work, resistance to, the hard stuff that it often involves when you're having to really, kind of take a look at your life. But it dawned on me that we also, as business owners, when you are having a conversation with a potential client, y'all, that's essentially a sales conversation. I know you don't like to think of it that way. We always feel like that's icky, but it's not icky. It's service. And if you don't know how to do it and you don't learn how to do it well, you're not going to bring those clients in and you're not going to be able to help them. But as a sales conversation, one of the things you have to learn how to do is overcome objections. And there are all kinds of ones that people tend to bring to that conversation. The most common ones are, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, or you don't understand, I'm too messed up, or I'm special, or I'm unique, and this can't help me. Those are sort of the three areas people tend to raise as an objection when it comes to investing in themselves and doing some deep work with you. And I think you guys are going to get this. There are all kinds of ways that our clients can really want what we're offering them and be afraid of it at the same time. They will fight it at the same time that they want it, right? And you'll see this when they do things, for example, like coming in for just a few sessions and then disappearing, or telling you that they really want the help and then arguing with you about every single suggestion that you make. These are all different ways that fear is protecting them from the kind of work and growth that they need to get better. And it's super common. They will distract themselves from what they know they need to work on, and yet at the same time be wishing they could feel better, right? Well, therapeutically, there are all kinds of ways that you'll see that, but also from a business perspective, money is a great reason not to, quote, do the work, right? But have you ever found yourself, well, let me put it this way. Depending upon how comfortable you are with a money conversation, you may react to that in a different way. If you're very comfortable with your pricing, with folks paying you what the work honestly requires, with an equal exchange of value between you and your clients, if you're at peace with that and you're fine with that, then when the money stuff comes up as a reason for folks not working with you, sometimes that really is exactly what it is, but not always. Sometimes it's more, there are other things going on under the surface. Have you ever found yourself noticing that? Have you ever found yourself thinking, yeah, you're saying it's about the money, but I have a sense there's something else going on here. There's some fear. There's some, I can't think of a better word. It's fear. It might show up in lots of different ways, but fear, there's something else underneath here. There's a dynamic at play here that isn't really about the money, but the money is easy to talk about. Now, if you are not comfortable with the ebb and flow of money, if you're still a little squirmy around that yourself, if you haven't quite made peace yet with that yourself, then it may be that when people say, I just can't afford it, that you go, oh, okay, I understand, and immediately think it's all about you. Nothing is black and white. Sometimes it is exactly what they say it is. But y'all, you know this. We are multi-layered human beings, and there are a lot of reasons why we do what we do. And in my experience, when you really want something and you're ready for it, and by golly, you're in, you'll find a way to do it. And if for any reason you're not in, you're a little resistant, you're a little afraid, you're just not ready yet, you'll find a reason not to, right? And I do the same thing. Like, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody here. I do this exact same thing. Let me just step aside for a second to say, if this is the case with you, if you find yourself tripping up a little bit over the money stuff, at the end of today's episode, I'm going to share with you a special little offer that I've got that I think you might be interested in. So stick around to the very end and make sure you get to hear that, because I think you might like that. So, all right, so I'm talking to Karie about owning her expertise and about bringing what she loves into the work from the very beginning. What do you do? How do you do this? How do you connect with someone who is resistant or afraid or reluctant or hesitating to commit to the work, or who is hesitating to make the kind of investment in themselves that you know good and well would really make a difference for them? Well, what I think you need to do, and this is exactly what I told Karie, is you need to lead them, lead the conversation and lead your clients by speaking directly to whatever that objection is. Speaking directly to the resistance, to the discomfort that getting help tends to bring up for all of us. As a therapist, I've often felt like my job is to say out loud what everybody's thinking, but nobody wants to say. You know, it's the elephant in the room idea that everyone's tiptoeing around, but we can all see it. Well, I kind of feel like you can do that not only as a healer clinically, but also as a business owner when you are talking to a potential client. So, for example, you might say to someone, "So I sense a little hesitation on your part, and I totally get that. I don't know you well enough to know if this is right at all. And if it's not, you are welcome to ignore this. But in my experience, a lot of folks who finally get up the nerve to call for help, and kudos to you for doing that, because you've already demonstrated real courage, and I'm really proud of you for that. But a lot of folks feel a lot of very natural kind of fear about doing this. And that's 100% normal. I just want you to know that, just in case that might be coming up for you. And growth is messy. Change can be hard. But the stuff on the other side is really, really good. And I personally think it's worth doing. You see where I'm going with this? Like, I want you to just go ahead and call it out. You don't do it in a way that is in any way like shaming or pointing a finger or even confronting. I like to say it as a lot of times people feel this or this or this. I don't know if this is a factor for you, but you might find yourself thinking this or wondering this. And I just try to kind of name it out loud up front. I think in some ways, Karie felt like she had to sort of sell therapy or sell the counseling work in itself, but that she also had to sell art therapy as a modality. And I really feel like that her discomfort in that could have been a factor that was holding her back. Because, y'all, when we hesitate, our clients are going to pick up on that. What that feels like, even unconsciously to others, is that we are not sure, we're not leading. But how powerful is it when you do lead, when you step confidently into what you know and name it and lead? All right. So here's where Karie and I went. As a result of the conversation that we had, as we were kind of teasing this out, we came up with 3 steps for her to take. One was she wanted to work particularly on being the confident guide that her clients need. And trust me, there are plenty of times when she's fine with that. It was just certain clients that she could feel this in. And you know this, when you have a session that doesn't quite go well, or you have a client who's a little harder to reach, it can sort of shake your confidence a little bit, right? That's completely normal. So Karie needed to do her own work to tap into her knowledge, her skill base, and what she knows is true, which is that she's really good at what she does. And then lead the way by taking the conversation where it needed to go with her clients, by addressing their fears and the potential blocks directly. That was step 1. Name the elephant in the room and lead your clients. Step 2 was to reframe her messaging about how she works with people. One of the cool things about art therapy and other types of modalities, music therapy, movement therapy, energy healing, experiential work, wilderness-based work, all of these other kinds of ways of working. The cool thing about those, y'all, is that they work really well for people for whom traditional talk therapy hasn't necessarily always been so good. If you operate in any of these alternative types of modalities or specific ways of working like DBT or AAIT or EMDR, those kinds of things as well, any of those, I feel like you have a bit of a marketing advantage. It's almost like you're the untherapist. You have a way of helping people achieve health that is outside the norm for folks who don't want to just sit around and talk about the problems all day long, right? So Karie, we talked about that, and I encouraged her to lean into that in her marketing, to make sure that her messaging on any kind of online profiles that she has, any kind of conversations she has with people, to say, I can do traditional talk therapy, and I'm a big fan of that, and there are times when that's perfect, but I also have some extra ways of working that are a little different than that, where sometimes you just don't want to talk about it. And don't worry, I'm going to mention the word that everybody's afraid of. It's a 3-letter word. It's called art. But don't let that freak you out, because honestly, if you can scribble, I can help you. And we can use this as a tool. Honestly, trust me on this. It's reframing the messaging to step right into that thing that makes her unique and special. And then the third thing was, we talked about how she could redesign her whole intake process so that it was a better fit for and representation of how she works. Now, how Karie does that's going to be different from how you do that. It's going to be different from how I do that. But oftentimes with folks who have something that is what I think of as a little bit more experiential, I think it can help to have an intake process that might be 2 or 3 visits or 2 or 3 hours that has multiple parts to it, where perhaps you have kind of an introduction, maybe some kind of an assessment, maybe you have them do an exercise or an experience of some sort, maybe you come back together with some kind of a result or a report or a recommendation. There's nothing that says you got to sit down with people and talk for 45 minutes and you got it all figured out. It's important to design your process in a way that fits the way you like to work with people. Okay? So being confident, being a leader, taking your clients where they need to go, and stepping right in to whatever the fears, the blocks, or the objections are. Reframing your messaging and taking the very thing that makes you unique and putting it right out in front as the exact reason why people should work with you, not the other way around. And then crafting your onboarding process, the way you bring people into working with you, the very beginning of their client journey with you, crafting that in a way that is uniquely suited to your style, your skills, and your clients. Isn't that cool? So what comes out of all of this, if I could sort of summarize all this, here's essentially what I'm talking about doing. Whether you are having an initial sales conversation, I know you don't want to call it that, but whether you are having an initial conversation with someone on the phone, whether you have set up a process where people come in for their first visit and you're meeting them there, however and wherever you are talking to folks about whether or not they might want to work with you, I want you to own your authority. I want you to claim your expertise. And I want you to embrace whatever it is about you that makes you unique, makes you special. Honestly, don't shrink from it, own it. All right. I want you to reassure your client by stepping more confidently into the role of leader with them. And we've talked about how to do that. I want you to speak directly to their fear and to what's hard about asking for help. So, if they're going to if you're an energy healer, you might say, I know this feels a little bit weird. Actually, people sometimes have questions about spirituality and whether this quote goes against their religion. Do you want to talk about that? Let's talk about that. Or maybe they do body work. Maybe you're a body worker and you do yoga or Feldenkrais or dance. And the objections might be, yeah, but what if I look stupid? Or what if I can't do it? Or what if I have to face the way my body is? I would say those things out loud. Here are some of the things people worry about when they think about doing this work. And here's why it's going to be okay. Maybe it's psychotherapy. It's not, you might want to say something about, folks talk to me about the cost. And I know that that's real. But what I find is often it's not about the money at all. It's the emotional challenge. It's scary to dive into your heart and to learn about yourself. But I want you to know all of this is normal. I want you to say out loud, you see where I'm going with this? What they might be thinking. I don't ever want to assume that I know what is true. So I love language like, it could be this, you might be feeling this. Oftentimes people tell me this. I don't know if you can relate or not, but I thought I would mention that just in case. You see? This is so good, y'all. When you lead with confidence, when you own what makes you special or unique, when you speak to their fears directly, and when you offer the reassurance that comes with that confidence, with your authority, with your expertise, they are going to be so grateful, and you will be surprised. More often than not, they're going to say, okay, you sound like you know what you're doing. I don't. I'm in. And I want you to praise them genuinely from your heart and let them know that you respect the courage that they're showing and even thinking about getting help. Make it a point to honor that fear and the power of their intention and tell them how much you would love to help them, assuming that you would. If it's a referral out, that's a whole different conversation, but you get my point here, right? Okay, so is this making sense? I hope so. If it's not, let me know and I'll try to clarify later, but I'm hoping that you get where I'm going with this. And here is my journal prompt for you, a little exercise I want you to do to help you kind of capture this for yourself. Here's my question that I want you to do a little writing with. And you can write this down and then spend some time in your journal and just do a little brainstorming and see what comes up. What's unique, brilliant, unusual, or maybe even a little quirky about you, your style, or your work that you need to lean into in your practice so that your ideal clients trust you, will follow you, and want to work with you? We're all looking for an original who knows what to do because we don't. As Seth Godin says, we need you to lead us. So what's unique, brilliant, unusual, or quirky about you or your work that you need to lean into in your practice so that your ideal clients trust you, follow you, and want to work with you? Answer that for yourself and see what happens next. Thanks everybody for being here. I'm so glad you're here. I don't know if you can hear the lawnmower that just started outside, but that seemed like a good place to stop. Have fun with this, y'all. It will help you. And Karie, bless your sweetheart. Thank you for letting me share your story with this audience. I'm so grateful to work with you, and I'm so proud of the work that you are doing and the growth that you are engaged in. And your clients are so lucky to have you leading the way for them. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one, and I'll see you next time. Bye now. What if you could stop worrying about getting enough clients, keeping enough clients, and getting paid by those clients? What if you could stop worrying about money much at all because you just knew that what you needed would always be there? Here's the thing, y'all. We all get stressed out, especially about money. And it's really easy to slip into a mindset that focuses on worry and lack. But the hard truth is, when that's where your mind is, self-sabotage isn't far behind. On the other hand, when you come back to center, tap into trust, and cultivate a mindset of abundance, it's amazing how things change. I swear sometimes it feels like magic. This is a 31-day mindset reset, where you'll get a daily dose of short lessons, sweet stories that offer positive energy and practice strategies. Each one takes less than 5 minutes and is designed to help you completely shift your relationship to money in your practice, and for that matter, in your life. Y'all, this is totally self-paced. There's no rush. You can read or listen to the lessons that fit what you need on any given day. And you get lifetime access to any future versions I may launch as well. That's why your one-time investment for Mind Over Money is forever. And it's only $197. What would it take for you to recoup that cost in your practice? 1 session? Maybe 2? On the other hand, what would it be worth to you to feel better about money and to reconnect with that, that inner sense of well-being that is your natural state? Personally, at the risk of sounding like a cliche, I kind of think that's priceless. So if you're tired of worrying, if you're ready to develop a lighter, loving relationship to money, go to wendypittsreeves.com/mind. Again, that's wendypittsreeves.com/mind. All you have to do is click on the button to register, make your payment, and you can get started right away. I'd love to see you there.